This episode of IGN Conversations is brought to you by Gran Turismo 6, available December 6th.
Hey guys, Eric and Jim here. Have a quick conversation about this week's Family Guy. Full spoiler warning, if you haven't seen the episode that aired on November 24th with the big death, we're about to give it away. You gone? You still here? Okay, let's go. So, Brian the dog, Brian Griffin, bit the dust.
I gotta say, of all the characters in Family Guy that they could have killed off, I am surprised that they went with Brian. I mean, it's headline grabbing, but he was one of the more interesting characters, I thought. I was kind of surprised that they didn't kill off Meg because she just seems to be on there to be the butt of jokes, and Mila Kunis has a lot of other things going on, so I thought maybe. But I don't know. I think I can't think of another animated series that ever killed off a primary character like that.
Right. You know, Simpsons now has killed off a couple of characters, but they were peripheral or, recurring supporting characters.
Yeah.
Not one of the Simpsons or even, Santa's Little Helper.
Yeah.
So it is pretty interesting to kill off, like on a family animated series like that one that's been on now for decade and a half or so.
Right.
Get rid of one of those characters.
Yeah, I mean it's to me it's an interesting challenge for them because Brian he had become such an iconic character in that show. How do you fill that void? Well, they started to show us what they have in mind, and I got to say I'm not overly taken with the new character. I know it's only one episode in, but I didn't find out Tony?
Vinny,
yeah. Yeah, it was Tony Sirico, I think.
Yeah,
from The Sopranos, Paulie Walnuts, I think. Yeah. I just didn't think that character was that interesting.
Yeah, I wonder, when you were talking about Mila Kunis, I did wonder, look, we know Seth MacFarlane is less involved in this show than he ever used to be because he's a busy guy, but it's still his show. So I think, maybe they killed off one of his characters just so he can come into the recording booth a little less each week.
I mean, that makes sense, but to me, that's kind of an awful way to justify killing off a character. Why not just get somebody else who could do the voice? I know it's so distinctively him, but, rather than kill off one of the more interesting characters, one of the more iconic characters. Yeah.
So here's my big question. Will this really stick? We see people already talking about this in, comments and whatnot and saying, he'll be back. People were saying maybe there's upcoming episode titles with Brian's name in the title, although I don't think that necessarily says one thing or the other. But do you believe that was this like a comic book death and he'll be back within a year?
I think, Seth MacFarlane is such a guy steeped in comic books and Star Trek, all these other things where dead characters have come back, that how could he pass up the sort of pop culture touchstones of aping those in future episodes? I think Brian could come back, but what if it's not in a regular capacity? What if they do something like he's a ghost, or they're just flashbacks? Maybe they'll pull from Star Trek, do an alternate timeline where Brian didn't die. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I guess though, if they really did do it because of MacFarlane's schedule, unless his schedule is going to lighten up, and I don't think it will because they're going to do Ted 2 next year. I don't know. Maybe this is it.
I don't know. I just feel like, first of all, I do hope it sticks around for a while, that they don't just go right back next week, and I don't think they will. But, I will say cynically, and just looking at it from a business perspective, there's a lot of Brian merchandising out there. He is one of the characters. He and Stewie are like sort of the characters that have kind of branched out into pop culture in general.
Yeah. Nobody's really buying the Chris stuff or the Meg stuff,
So I just don't believe it. I think he'll be back one way or the other. Like you said, it could be maybe a weird way or a way where he's not in every episode.
I mean, how could they pass up the Star Trek 3 possibilities of like the Search for Spock kind of stuff?
Right.
Where, Stewie's going to end up, Stewie and Brian somehow have to go and bring back, Brian's Katra, if you will. That's a real Star Trek 3 reference right there.
Yes.
But I was kind of, what did you think of the actual way they killed him off? And that's why I thought it was kind of pretty dramatic.
For Family Guy, that was about as weighty, I think, as that show could handle.
They're all crying, you know?
Yeah, and he had a deathbed scene. So I thought for that show, it's funny that we're even having this conversation about Family Guy, not some big serialized drama. I thought they handled it as, well.
And also,
as
there's a Frankenweenie aspect there of him getting hit by the car. I was kind of surprised that he didn't just fall down the stairs drunk from a martini or something.
Right. They went for the mundane way of him dying.
And there was also, like, in his funeral scene, I'm pretty sure we saw some characters from past episodes. I think The girlfriend character that I think Drew Barrymore voiced showed up to leave a flower in the casket.
There's probably some other sort of Easter eggs there because it's Brian's funeral.
Right.
But I think he's coming back some point, one way or the other. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. You know, you think this one's sticking for a while? Think he'll be back sooner or later, or you think he'll be back? There's no way they're going to let this character stay dead.